No? Jeff, do you have anything for open forum?
No, sir.
Anything from the public for open forum? I have one topic, and I was speaking with Jeff a little earlier about this. So, given, I know we've talked about this in the past, the in-person meetings versus remote meetings. I know some town boards have opted for remote meetings. Other town boards are continuing to meet in person, and I know this board's preference when we can is to meet in person as much as possible. With that said, I think this evening's meeting is a good indication of the current rise in COVID cases across the Commonwealth. Kate can't join us and be here in person, and I think due to Bob's proximity issues that have been present and will continue, we don't even have the benefit of more efficient. We're still roll call voting essentially, even when we are gathered together. So, what I am going to ask Joe and Jeff to do is plan our February. We only have one planning board meeting in February. I'd like us to plan to do that one virtually. I know it's not our preference, but I think it's prudent given where we are with the state case count rising. And I would ask that we have a conversation amongst the board at that time as part of that meeting agenda to decide with the March meetings whether we'll reconvene in person or continue virtually. I don't mean to flex the chairperson might. I just think at this point, it's as much to me a concern that we could actually impact the engine that this board provides to the town, both our tax-paying residents as well as the folks who are in front of us as applicants, if we were to have late in the game situations like Kate's case that came up today. Any of us could wind up feeling under the weather. We could have multiple people in that situation, and it could put us in a position in February to actually not be able to have a meeting if you had multiple people who could not attend and were so under the weather that they couldn't be present for a meeting. So I think it's safer to plan that meeting as a virtual one and then revisit that discussion in that meeting for the March meetings. Unless you guys have,
so Joe,
reason
I'd like to add
one. Yeah.
I want to add one thing to that.
Yep.
I understand. I agree with what you're saying. In addition, we do have a number of people that come to the audience, and that is the same situation. We want to make sure that we allow the audience to meet, but we need to keep them safe. So even if the board isn't the issue, there are the audience members who potentially could be contagious and could spread it amongst themselves. So it's a matter of keeping the town safe, not just the board.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned that, Bob, because actually that was something that I noted in that email from earlier and that conversation on a social media feed. There was actually comments in that given the current situation, some people feel uncomfortable actually coming to attend the planning board meeting who might otherwise do so because of the current situation. So I think not just for our own health and safety, but I think it may actually encourage better participation in the meeting in February. And I think we can take stock and see whether case counts are continuing to rise or have they leveled off and started to come down where we feel like coming back together in person in March makes sense. So I don't know, Darren, Mike, if you guys have any comments on that. I know it's not our general preferences to do that, but I think it just makes sense with where we are right now in the state to take that course of action.
Yeah. I mean, I prefer to meet in person, but that's fine.
Yeah.
So we just need to see for the public hearing notices that are going to be published, if there's a chance to make that change now. I know we have some language in there already, but if we know it's going to be virtual, it'd be best to advise the public accordingly, if we have time to do that for this next publication.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. I don't have any issue with it for February. Like your good point. I mean, hopefully at that point we'll see things starting to slow down, so we can come back in March. So
yeah, exactly.
I prefer a live meeting as well, but let's see. Probably makes sense at this point.
I agree. This constitutes a night out of the house for me, so I don't mind getting out when we can. I just, looking at the situation in totality, I feel like, I know, I heard a number of people who getting back today, I know a number of people who, not that I've been in contact with, but through work and otherwise that have tested positive, and it seems like, this surge in cases is real, so I think, it's prudent for us to, plan for a safe February meeting, and then hopefully we could get back together in March. Okay. So with that, we move on to our public hearing items. The first one is PB 2145, site plan, special permit for the construction of a common driveway for the Cloverleaf Lane subdivision, which is located at 22 Griffin Road, also known as Lot C.
Recuse myself.
Oh, yes. Thanks, Mike.
So, Mr. Chair, although Joe will be covering this item, I just wanted to point out I did have a conversation with Attorney Doug Duchesne today. He had an emergency come up late in the day, and he could not attend But given where the board was with this application, it resulted from this board's request.
Yep.
I thought my understanding is the applicant made all the requested changes by this board and/or fire department.
Yep.
And I believe there's a draft decision in your packet.
Yep.
And we think, regardless of who may be here to actively discuss, I think you already opened the hearing, and unless you have questions or issues, I think it's totally appropriate for you to move forward.
Yep. Great. Okay. Yeah, thanks. And as I look through the packet, it does seem like all of the concerns have been addressed, at least from my read-through of the packet this weekend. So, since we don't have an applicant to go to, I will just go right to the board then. I'll start with you, Darren. Any comments on the draft decision, or?
No, that looked good. We talked about it last time. It was, I think, gracious of the applicant to widen the common drive per requests of safety, so I think it looked consistent with that.
Yep, agreed. Great, thanks. Kate, do you have any comments on the common driveway and specifically the decision in the packet for 22 Griffin Road?
Yeah, I just had a couple of comments on the decision, and I ditto Dylan's comment thanking the applicant about being gracious about the 16-foot wide driveway. So page 29 in the packet, which is page 6 of the decision, item 6, it has the things that need to be done, and one is recording of the driveway easement, and it has XXXSF. And I was just wondering if we have to have that XXXSF there, or can it be deleted?
I think it's just to represent whatever the square footage of the easement will end up being. So once we have that number, we can plug that number in to replace that, just generic placeholder.
Kate, did you hear that?
It's just a place.
It's
So
a
it's really just, okay, I didn't know what SF was for, so that's the.
I guess they don't, they don't have the square footage calculation yet for the easement, but once they do, that number will get plugged in place of that for X.
And I think there were some possibilities of changes based on the comments, so it might have been left XXX to, as a reminder, to make sure we double-check the final number that the board approves, so.
Okay. Okay, so it's to be filled in. And on the next page, item 9 is talking about erosion controls, and I appreciate that. In other decisions, or at least we've had something where there's also a sentence that erosion control measures will be removed prior to something, and I thought it was like the occupancy permit.
Mhm.
So I know they will be removed because they're going over somebody else's land, but just for completeness, I thought it would be good to have a sentence in there that the erosion control measures will be removed. And I forget what the criterion is. I know another one that's been upon approval for engineering or something like that.
Yeah. Jeff has a comment.
If my memory serves, I think there was a comment shall be removed within a certain time period, like 2 weeks upon request by the department. Because we can't necessarily tie it to a C of O because there may be need for it.
Yeah.
So usually that would get looked at when whatever security is put in place for the development prior to that, and or within 2 weeks or so of a request to remove it.
Yeah, I just want to have something in there to remind them that they do have to remove them.
We can do that.
And that's all I had.
Great, thanks, Kate. Bob, do you have any comments on the draft decision for 22 Griffin?
No, first comment I just want to make was I was in total agreement with the decision last meeting to make the waiver of the fee. So I also just want to say thank you to the applicant for doing all of this. I had made the original request during the first hearing, so I'm happy to see this. I have no real concerns other than I did talk to Jeff earlier today because the language access and utility easement probably doesn't accurately capture the reason for that. It's my understanding, I was talking to Jeff, that it's really a drainage issue and an issue with the topography, because my request to the applicant would have been that the access and utilities be run up the driveway easement so that there was less impact to the future owner of Lot 2. And I would still like to encourage all those utilities to be run in that manner. But other than that, no, I think the plan looks good. And I would say thank you to the applicant for increasing the size of the width from 12 to 16. That simplified our life in this matter. So that's all I have to say.
Okay?
Want me to?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
So I think, Bob, if I may, the drainage was in place before the common driveway request was made, so that was what was deemed optimal for the project. So I don't know that at this stage the applicant would want to make changes to drainage. The common drive was sort of the after-the-fact addition. And so I do understand, you know, maybe there could have been separate easements, but the way they chose to go forward with this, and given that the request came from this board, I'd like to think we can make it as painless as possible for them to follow through on this board's request.
Yeah, no, I agree with respect to drainage.
Okay. Anything else, Bob?
No, I'm good.
Great. Yeah, I don't have anything to add to what the board has already added to the draft decision. So, given that, I guess, Joe, are we prepared to, we can take a vote on this, move this ahead?
Yeah, I mean, we should open the hearing, close the hearing,
Yep.
and
Yeah, and do all that, but there's no reason we can't take action on this evening. Correct. Great. Okay, so.
Did you check to see if there's anyone from the?
Was just about to, yeah. So is there anyone from the audience here to offer comments for PB 2145, that is 22 Griffin Road, Cloverleaf Field subdivision, a common driveway? Nope, seeing none. Great, so is there a motion? Yep,
I move that we close the public hearing.
Second?
great.
Second.
Motion and a second, so, you know, all votes tonight will be by roll call, so we'll go around the horn. So, motion and a second, all those in favor, Bob?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Darren?
Aye.
And I say aye. All right, meeting is closed. Then do we have a motion on the, is there a motion to approve the special permit for a common driveway for PB 2145 at 22 Griffin Road with comments and as amended in the discussion this evening?
So moved.
Question, do we also have to reference the waivers in the motion?
So it would be ideal to make reference to the draft decision and the suggested waivers granted therein.
So the friendly amendment would be then, is there a motion to approve the special permit for the common driveway at 22 Griffin Road as outlined in the draft decision with comments and as amended through the discussion this evening?
And waivers.
And the waivers.
Correct.
Okay, so you still have the motion, Bob has the second. There's a motion and a second. All those in favor, Kate?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
Darren?
Aye.
And I say aye. Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. That brings us to our next public hearing item, which is PB 2136. This is a modification to a site plan review at 22 Town Farm Road, more commonly known as the Millworks. Welcome back, Mike. Sorry, I got going too quickly there. To expand into buildings 13 and 16, the applicant has requested postponement with no discussion to the February 7th meeting. Is that correct?
that's correct.
Great. Is there a motion to continue PB 2136 to the February 7th meeting?
So moved. Second?
Motion,
moved.
motion and a second. All those in favor, Bob?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Darren?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
And I say aye. Okay, 2136 is continued. That brings us to our third public hearing topic, which is PB 2140.
Wait a minute.
No, first we have to continue 71 and 0 Power Road.
Sorry, my bad.
I move that we continue PB.
That's where I'm at. Wait, that's what I was just,
We are.
I was doing PB
Oh,
2142.
okay, sorry.
Does anyone else want to drive? Because I'm happy to sit in the back seat. That's fine.
All good.
Okay. For PB 2142, 710 Powers Road, the applicant has requested postponement without discussion to February 7th, 2022. Is there a motion to continue PB 2142 to February 7th?
So moved.
Second.
So moved.
Two motions and 1 second. All those in favor, Bob?
Aye.
Kate?
Abstain?
Oh, yes. Darren?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
And I say aye. All right, 2142 is on the docket along with 22 Town Farm Road for February 7th. Great. Brings us to our fourth public hearing item, which is PB 2143, which is a site plan review for 124 Main Street, Lot 4. Many people would know this probably as the Hicks property. I see the applicant is with us. Welcome. Happy New Year.
Good evening, Happy New Year, Mr. Chair. For the record, Attorney Melissa Robbins from the law firm of Farrell & Robbins. Also with me tonight is Matt Waterman from Land Tech Consultants and the project manager from 124 MSW LLC, Joe Cataldo.
Great.
I'd like to just give the board an update. We did continue the last meeting, but it was really just to get through the engineering comments. We did revise the plan in conformance with all of the engineering comments, and we did get a clean letter from engineering saying that all the issues had been addressed. There was a couple suggested conditions of approval in their numbered conditions, and we're satisfied with all of that, and we're satisfied with their typical conditions on the end of their letter. So we have no outstanding issues with engineering. I have no issue with the engineer either. We also opened our conservation meeting, and we had no major concerns from the conservation either. There was no site changes whatsoever. We are going to add a couple landscaping things, but they will be inside of the buffer. The landscaping things will be a community garden and a hardscaped area, but they will all be in front of those trees where it says proposed earthen berm, although those trees will look a little different. But so that's what's really been changed from the Conservation Commission meeting, so nothing that would affect this board in any way. One of the board members at the last meeting had raised an issue just regarding a typo error on the deed in an acknowledgement, and we actually did reach out to the Hicks, and they will agree to sign a Scrivener's affidavit, so we will have that next couple weeks, so that was good news. Matt, the revised plan set and submitted to the board, all of those are in conformance with the engineering comments. And we have no other outstanding issues with the site plan or any outstanding comments with any town boards or departments. I'm happy to answer any questions the board may have.
Great. Thank you for the update. Joe or Jeff, any comments from town staff before we go to the board?
Nothing too much to report, Mr. Chairman. I did speak with engineering, and they are in agreement with the applicant that there doesn't really seem to be anything outstanding at this point, and they're happy to work with them should the board make a decision this evening.
Great. Was there any update, just before I go to the board, with conversations with the Historic Commission or anything? I know that there was some, you gave us an update that there was some interest from the Historic Commission in the actual house itself and some things that they were finding in there. Any updates on that front?
Yes, we actually had another site walk with Historic, and they did look at some of the historical features, and we did work through some of that. There will be some items maintained even in the inside of the structure, and even some in the existing barn/garage area. So we're working through that process with Historic. We're going to have no issues there.
Okay, great.
Right.
Excellent. Great. So given that, I guess I will go to the board. Mike, do you want to go first on this one?
Sure. I don't have any comments. I read that engineering was all set with everything. I know that Bob had some questions about the rain gardens or whatnot, but it appears to be that all those have been answered, so I'm good to go with this.
Great. Darren?
Likewise, yeah, saw engineering's comments, I saw they were all addressed, so looks great.
Yep. Great. Kate, do you have any comments on 124 Main Street, Lot 4?
Just a couple on, if we go to the engineering memo dated 12/30, and on page 2 of that, it's page 72 in the packet. Number 8, it had to do about the width reduction could potentially impede traffic movement. And I just want to make sure I understand that that's because of the extra parking spaces that are being retained part of the existing driveway that's not going to be removed. And so they're trying to keep like a curve request those parking spaces? Is that the area that they're talking about?
It's the circle in front of the house here, and then the width at the front to the entrance to Main Street. And yeah, so that will allow us to have those parking spaces and maintain the opening at Main Street, and keep the current configuration of the driveway.
Okay. And my other comment is on item 12. It has to do with the proposed grading, possibly extending onto the adjacent lot. And the applicant has stated all site work and grading will be completed prior to the sale of lot 4 or the adjacent property. And I didn't know if maybe that should be in the conditions.
Sure, would be satisfied with that being a condition. We will have all the grading done prior to any transfer. We don't expect any long-term easements going onto either property.
Maybe that condition, though, to give the applicant flexibility, it's either they shall complete that prior to the sale or secure reserve the necessary easements, so there's
Sure.
no issues.
Happy with the friendly amendment.
Thank you.
Yes.
Great.
Yep, Jeff, I like the friendly amendment as well. And that's all I had. It's pretty simple site plan review,
Yep.
and you've done a good job preparing.
Yep. Thanks, Kate. Bob, any thoughts on 124 Main Street, Lot 4?
Yeah, no additional comments. I think all the concerns have been addressed by that engineering memo that we received.
Yep. Yeah, agreed. I think, engineering did a great job, and your response was fantastic. You guys worked through all the issues, so packet's very clear, and all the comments have been addressed, so this looks pretty much good to go to me. So given that, we'll go to the audience. Is anybody in the audience here to offer comments on PB 2143, 124 Main Street, Lot 4, a portion of the former Hicks Farm? Please come up and state your name and address for the record.
Jeremy Gagney, 88 Main Street. This is my first seeing this. I just got on all the lists for the town. I was a new resident to town the last year and a half. Just concerned with the thought of a 4-unit development in the middle of 2 other lots on either side, single-family residence. There are really no other single-family or multifamily residents in the general area. Besides the condo development, I believe it's like 89, 91, whatever, right before the convenience store. So I just, that was just my concern, based on the sale, the price of the land sale, you're talking like $400,000 price just for the lot. And I just thought that a 4-unit development in between 4 single-family houses, just the appease, just won't look right. And I just don't know what that's going to do to area property values. I see the single-family homes. I've seen some renderings in packets, and they do look nice. I just haven't seen a rendering for the 4-unit. I'm just concerned that it just will look out of place, and there is no general multi-unit area dwellings in the vicinity whatsoever. So that was my concern.
So this is in the packet. They did present to us at the first, I think the first time when we opened this hearing, sort of this would be the facade, I guess, from the road. Is that correct?
Correct.
So the front, this is really yours.
Sure, I'm happy to go through it quickly.
Yeah.
We have the hard drawings as well, but what will happen is that the farmhouse will be maintained. That's the existing front of the dwelling, and there'll actually be 2 units within the existing farmhouse. Instead of doing a conversion and keeping some of the back of the old property that extends into the rear, what we've done instead is demolished all of the apartment and everything in the rear, and instead have designed something that looks like a carriage house to the left of that, so that it follows the same design. Matt, is there one on the other side too, showing the other end of the carriage house?
No, just
Okay.
the...
And so there will be, that will also be 2 units. Oh, there you go. So when you're coming down Main Street in that direction, this will actually be the view shed coming down Main Street. And really, it's trying to make sure that the structure looks like a home and then a carriage house for a total of 4 units on the property, instead of doing a conversion and keeping the 4 units within the existing structures on the property.
So this is being built off an existing building, just basically...
One of 2. The house.
Well, there's a million outbuildings
Yeah,
on that
yeah,
property,
yeah.
right? So.
Many of those are going away, I
Yeah,
think.
if you go to the first, I know there's so many slides here, I'm
Green.
sorry. If you go to the
Yeah,
very,
I mean,
very first slide,
And one of the engineering's
that-
comments is
yeah,
that the
that one.
total hardscape on the property is coming down a lot. It's actually gonna have a lot more pervious surface as opposed to impervious. Right now, it's just a mess of different, like, not a mess, but it's a bunch of different walkways and hardscapes and things like that. And so the overall pervious surface is gonna be greatly increased through the project, actually.
And this shows lot 4 in the middle, which is the lot we're here for tonight, and the house is in the lower right corner. And then on the left-hand side is the office that's there today. The house gets converted into 2 units, and then the office footprint stays the same, and that's where it's reconstructed as the carriage house. That's supposed to mimic the house. And last meeting, we had the architect here who did a very good job of explaining the architecture and how it's subservient to the main house and intended to make it look like it's an accessory dwelling, and that the house stays the primary dwelling on the lot. And all that was discussed with the Board of Appeals when we went through that process, and trying to lay out this lot in a way that we felt pulled things away from the resource areas, maintained the view shed along Main Street, and did so in a nice way, I guess, effective way.
Yeah, I mean, the rendering looks nice. I was just concerned with the 4-unit.
Yeah. I can,
We're seeking, I think they're seeking a waiver. I don't know anything about this stuff, so you gotta excuse me.
Yeah,
But, to go from, I know it's like mixed use or whatever that calls, whatever that means, but to go from, be seeking a waiver from 2 to 4, to put extra units on the lot, I just think in the spirit of the town, the spirit of that property, the spirit of that developer, the former developer, Mr. Hicks, built half of
yep.
Chelmsford, Tingsboro, and some of Westford, mainly all single-family houses. I just thought that it would be in the spirit to keep that forth going.
Yep. Yeah, I can tell you that it's already zoned for multifamily, isn't that correct?
well, it's pre-existing non-conform, there's a variance on the property and it's pre-existing non-conforming. So I won't go through all of the history, but it was always a home and a business. From the inception of this property, there was a shoemaker that took care of the property across the street, which was Fairview. It was then purchased by a funeral home, and it was operated as a home and a funeral home. And then it was purchased by Mr. Hicks, and it was operated as his house, and then the construction business. And then he did an extension of that variance to even allow for the woodworking, which allowed for the extension of that office and the extension of some of the other structures out there. So in going through the zoning board process, what we did was, instead of doing a conversion and staying in the house and the apartment that you can see meandering towards Lot 4, we're actually removing all of that from the rear, which will make it a lot nicer open space area back there, and then removing the office, which was built largely reconstructed in the 80s and really doesn't fit in with the architecture of the historic home, and converting that into the carriage house and putting the 2 and 2 instead of all 4 units in the house.
So the office is being raised, the house is staying.
That's correct. Just the house portion, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, can I just?
Yeah, please.
Just the house portion that's in the front of everything else goes.
Yeah, I assume the office is going down because it's got holes in the roof, so.
Yeah, the office is definitely going down, and that's where the new carriage house will go.
Fire department had fun.
Yeah.
I can tell you just from a precedent perspective, it's not in exactly the same neighborhood. I live maybe 5 miles from this development. But actually, when the home that I live in was built, a developer purchased a piece of land. It had an old house, the same as this, and that house actually did get converted into 4 condo units. And then the development that I live in is sort of like behind that. So it's not unprecedented in Westford where you have a combination of a multifamily development with some newer homes that get constructed. It can often happen when one of the homes has some historical significance and the historic commission tells the developer, hey, we don't want you to knock that building down, we want to preserve that, you know what I mean?
But that wouldn't be the case here in the office, though.
Not in the office, but in the house it is.
Excuse me if I can, Mr. Chair, the out structure actually was also historic, a portion of it.
Yeah.
Just not the extended portion. And just a twist on the permitting, this was done as a 2-step process at the zoning board. Since the office structure wasn't included in the residence, couldn't do conversion for where you see units 3 and 4.
Yep.
So units 1 and 2 went through the conversion bylaw, and then units 3 and 4 went through an extension of pre-existing non-conforming use. So there was actually 2 separate permits here that allowed for this permit to proceed.
Gotcha. Yeah. Jeff?
Attorney Robbins covered a lot of what I was going to say, but I just want to point out that the conversion for the Hicks home, that could have happened at any point in history because our zoning bylaw allows for homes that predate adoption of our zoning bylaw, which was 1955. So that could have potentially been converted into 2 units or even up to as many as 4 units, as long as they secured special permit relief from the Zoning Board of Appeals. So they did do that in November of 2021, which was half of the permit methods with the zoning board. And then, as you mentioned, all those other buildings and uses and things, they were able to, through another special permit, change all of that to end up, get rid of all that and change that into just 2 more residential units with garage parking spaces for the overall development.
That's how we got where we are.
Yeah, like I said, first time seeing it, with the construction and the excess truck traffic that's been up and down the road, gathered me to start looking at it, and, you know, here I am today just asking, you know, the town to consider it's nice to see the property, don't get me wrong, it's nice to see the property moving to something instead of, you know, this town likes to collect buildings and keep them abandoned for a while.
Yep.
It's nice to see something go with the property, so don't get me wrong with that, I'm all for that, but I was just concerned with the 4 units. You know, going onto a property that really, you know, you're keeping one building and now adding a second one and asking for a bylaw, I guess, adjustment, I don't know.
Yep.
To make it a 4 unit, to go from 2 to 4.
It's not really a bylaw adjustment.
No, it was working with provisions in our zoning bylaw. So the zoning board gets to decide for any given application if the circumstances are right, and if they find that the proposal would not be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than the existing circumstances, then they have the authority to grant that relief. And the applicant satisfied the zoning board to all the criteria, and they granted the relief.
So at this point, we're really at the site plan review stage where we're really just making sure that what they are now proposing that was approved by the ZBA as far as a use conforms to like the building standards and how it would actually need to be implemented from a parking and safety and all the other.
Yeah, and that to
considerations.
a resident means nothing because I don't know the process, so I'm just
Yeah.
here to voice my concern.
Yeah. Understood. Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else in the audience here to talk about 124 Town Farm Road, Lot 4?
Main Street.
Yeah.
Sorry. What did I say?
Town
Town Farm, sorry. I can't get Town Farm off the brain. They're in front of us every week. Okay. Seeing no other comments from the audience,
Move to close?
move to close the public hearing,
Make a
or
motion.
should we get a draft decision in the next?
So, it's up to the board. I've heard some comments tonight suggesting that you thought this was pretty straightforward and that the comments were addressed. We could certainly, I mean, we've already been working on a draft decision, I know Joe has, and Sierra. We could simply tweak one of the conditions that they satisfy the engineering comments from that memorandum of that date to the satisfaction of the engineering department. I don't know, are you trying to keep the hearing open for
No.
any other purpose? So,
No, the site plan will not, we've already made the changes, except, am I out of order here? There's already a motion on the floor.
There's
Just
no
a point of
motion.
I
clarification.
started it.
We did have a conservation meeting, but we do not think there'll be site plan adjustments except for the inclusion of the landscape plan. So as long as your decision allows for the inclusion
Yes.
of the landscape plan in conformance with what I've presented this evening.
So
that's
how
fine.
about, given that the commission's jurisdiction is limited, we
Right.
could add a condition like we normally do about minor modifications resulting from the Conservation Commission review, that they could come back. Those would be very minor in nature, probably related to landscaping and plantings, probably species. And then they could come back if there was some minor tweak without needing a new formal process.
Does that work for you guys?
Yeah, so you're saying, ask staff to prepare,
Well, we have
Decision or-
a draft, we didn't want to be
Okay.
presumptuous and put it in your packet, but it sounds like the board was satisfied with respect to site plan review. Engineering weighed in with their technical comments, they only had one really minor thing, I think, so you could close it and approve it, And just make sure that we include, in addition to the normal conditions, satisfy engineering departments of their technical review memorandum, and we'll give a little flexibility, like we tend to do, for if changes that you deem minor or unsubstantial could be approved by the board at a public meeting. So if the commission required changes in the buffer zone, which I don't know to what level of detail you're looking at that on this plan anyhow, they would have that option. And we usually run those by the chair to see if this warrants an agenda item, if it's even needed.
Right.
I move we close the public hearing for,
Let me just, hold on, before you put that forward, but Bob and Kate, do you have any comments on that? Are you okay closing this evening and asking staff to prepare a draft decision as has been discussed, or do you guys want to see the draft decision before we move forward?
I guess I'd like to see the draft decision, definitely. I'm not as concerned about that and keeping the hearing open as I am the fact that the Conservation Commission hasn't closed their hearing. And I'm sitting here pondering whether we should keep it open until Conservation closes theirs so that we don't have any surprises.
well, I think if there are a surprise, they have to come back before us anyway, right? Isn't that what Jeff had just said?
Yeah, if it causes changes to your plan.
Yeah, I'm kind of like with same as Bob. I like to see the draft decision, and if there's not a time crunch for them, or if there is, we could do a special session or something.
Are you guys going to close with Conservation this month?
The next Wednesday, the 12th. Is
Yes,
that
correct. We're scheduled to be in front of them on the 12th.
And just a point of clarification, we don't expect there to be any site changes to the layout and design whatsoever as a result of the Conservation Commission, because what we did here was complied with our Notice of Resource Area Delineation, our ORAD, and stayed out of the 200-foot buffer, and all work that we're proposing within that area is general landscaping. So there would be no major changes to the site plan whatsoever.
So, I mean, given that, Bob and Kate, are you guys comfortable closing this evening? And if some major showstopper comes up, we can have them come back in front of us through a condition of this, that we apply to the request for town staff to prepare the draft decision?
Well, I don't mind closing. Are you saying as well voting this time? But at some point, I would like to see the decision.
Spirit of compromise?
Yep.
How about if you close the hearing,
Yep.
ask us to prepare the decision, we're happy to share it with the board members, not collectively, but individually, and if you have comments, you can certainly feel free to share them with us, and we'll run any such changes or edits by the applicant before clocking it in, and we'll send you folks a final version. How's that?
Kate, does that work for you?
Okay, so Jeff is also included in there that we vote tonight? Is that what he didn't say, but I'm hearing?
Well, that sounds to me what I sense a majority of the board is feeling, and if you feel, I've heard that you think they've satisfied your site plan review criteria. If the applicant's willing to take on whatever risk, if any, if, moving forward, I would generally defer to the applicant. If you feel your criteria has been satisfied, I mean, site plan's supposed to be, a 60-day process from submittal to decision. And it sounds like, I think you've decided, you just want to make sure there's no issues created by conservation in their buffer zone or riverfront.
Right. If you have a comment.
I'm assuming there's not going to be any issues.
Yeah, Kate.
So I'm happy voting on it, but I do think it behooves that the planning board does have the opportunity to review the decision.
Yep. Okay, so hold on, Kate, because someone from the audience has stepped up. Please, your name and address for the record.
Hi, Jen Vozella, 9 Douglas Road. I'm just curious about whether the grading that's taking place that has been approved is within the resource area, the 200-foot buffer?
So you're talking about the work that's on the other, not this lot.
The grading from this lot into the next, is there no grading on this one? I just heard grading, and my question is about, and that it would lead into this lot, and that there would be no easements as a result of it. I was curious where it was.
Go ahead. Yep.
I And I think that initial plan you had probably worked. Sorry, I agree. But it's two different issues. The grading that was commented by the engineering department was grading that when we're tearing down the houses and grading between lots 4 and 5 in particular, it's just grading so that there's a constant grade going between the two lots, and there was some concern that if you sell one of the lots, then you're not allowed to do it, and then you'll have retaining walls, and so they would just want to make sure that the grading plan we're showing, and that wasn't necessarily in the resource area. We do have regrading in the resource area for the berm, and that's kind of a separate issue, which we've been talking with conservation, and the berm and the plantings, and our plan that we're working with, that we've kind of been talking about, is just the final planting plan and showing the conservation a little more detail of what our work is in that 200-foot riverfront area, which Melissa talked about quickly, but it's showing some hardscape, showing the plantings that are native to Massachusetts, and then there's a couple community gardens that we wanted to put on the plan and reserve. So it doesn't change the site plan review, for access and pedestrians and parking and all those things. But there is minor grading associated with that, within that 200-foot riverfront area.
All right, you know where the existing fence is, Matt?
Way in the back.
Yeah.
Right at the very top of the lot.
Where would that be? No, the
one that's along the edge of the pavement?
Yeah. Where's that?
That's
It's just behind the new,
It's basically along the edge of the pavement, right there, where Joe's pointing.
is that to me is a berm that was pre-existing. Is that coming down or is that staying?
That stays there. Our grading blends right into that.
Okay, so that slope stays
slope
and the fence
stays
comes
in-
down.
Correct.
Okay, that's my only question. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you very much. Okay, so we're back on the subject of closing, asking for a draft decision and potentially approving that draft decision with the condition that, we can review the draft decision and offer comments that will be included in that draft decision?
Yeah, and if it's too complicated for that, say we have competing comments, that conflict, then we can schedule a special meeting, and the board proper can reconcile it at a special meeting.
Does that work for you, Kate and Bob?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep, okay. Great. Let's entertain a motion.
I move that we
To that
close the
effect.
public hearing of PB 2143, 124 Main Street, Lot 4.
Second. Motion and a second to close the public hearing on PB 2143. All those in favor? Bob?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Darren?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
I say aye.
Move that we approve the, application of 124 Main Street, 124 MSW LLC, site plan review, PB 2143, as discussed this evening, with the draft decisions to be circulated for approval.
I'm sorry, did that also include the stormwater management permit, or is
The
that
stormwater
separate?
management permit.
Okay.
Sorry. Okay, motion and a second to approve, this this site plan review, contingent upon the draft decision being disseminated for review and comment by this board, with an option for a special meeting if we feel the need to discuss. Yeah? We have a motion and a second on that,
Including the stormwater management.
and it includes, yes, thank you. Bob?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Darren?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
And I say aye. All right,
Thank you very much.
thank you. All right, so we are through the public hearing items and on to general business. Our first, thank you very much. Thank you. Yep, good luck. Thank you, Joe. Our first general business topic is PB 2202, a request to authorize administrative review and approval for a change in use from personal services establishment to business or professional office for 6 Liberty Way. Applicant in front of us? Welcome. How's it going?
Jim Scanlon, Vice President, WJS Mechanical, and his wife, Tiffany. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Me, you.
Thanks for having us.
Sure. So what's going on at 6 Liberty?
We're just looking to move our company. We outgrew a space currently in Tewksbury, Mass. My family and I have moved to Westford as well, so we're looking to build in this town.
Great.
Build a
Welcome to
company.
town.
Thank you.
What's there now? What was there?
So it's a commercial, it's already a commercial building. So 6 Liberty Way, if you're familiar with it, it's where the old Puma was. I heard Amazon's coming. I don't know if that's true.
It's next to it, yeah.
Yeah, so it's in, if you're driving down the street, number 6 is the last building on the left before you hit that main business park. So there's a law firm, there's a couple other
Yeah, it's office space. There's
businesses that are
a
already
few
there.
office, a kitchen equipment firm. Yeah, and just all office space.
Yeah. So, okay, so it's, yeah, because did it say somewhere in here that it was a,
There was
So-
some warehouse going, it had some warehouse use before, right?
what is the space now?
So it was previously an office space.
Yeah.
Then it was like a storage more than warehouse for a healthcare company that was selling weight loss drugs, I believe.
Okay.
That's still remnants of that still in space, but yeah, it was office. Then it was storage more so, and then yeah, that's about it. It was just a big open room.
Huh. Okay. Interesting. And the pictures that are in the packet is like the current state, is it being built out for your business or?
For office space,
For
yes.
office space, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah. Does anybody have any questions?
No, you make reference to the fact that there is a, looks like there is a loading dock there.
Yes.
But you guys wouldn't be doing any sort of like heavy equipment storing there and stuff. You mentioned you were gonna be basically light stuff.
Yeah, correct. No, we wouldn't be storing anything large like that. We send to a rigger's yard. We would not store anything outside of our dwelling. It would be just light material, service parts, stuff like that.
Gotcha. Mike, you have any?
Nope.
Kate, do you have any comments for this request to authorize administrative review and approval for a change in use?
I just had on page 94 of the packet, it's the plan where it has the office spaces and it has a dark dashed outline, and then it also has stuff in pink, and I didn't know what I didn't care about this.
So that's all existing wall.
And versus the dashed line.
That the pink line was the original walls.
That's the way it was existing.
Yeah, that was the existing condition.
Okay.
And there was just all open in
Okay.
in the interior there.
Okay.
And then the new walls show the new design that we would like to proceed with.
Okay.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. And I read a little bit about your company online, but just to dot the i's and cross the t's, no hazardous waste storage, correct?
Correct. No hazardous waste.
Okay. No, that's it.
Thanks, Kate. Bob, any comments?
The only question I had was, has this gone through any kind of review with any other boards or engineering? Just making sure that all the health and safety aspects of this change of use have been evaluated by the professionals.
Not that I'm aware of, I don't think it requires any other approval from any other land use board.
Would probably only go to the building commissioner.
Yeah.
It's probably just us and the building commissioner.
Yeah, and the building commissioner did approve it. He has building permits and the rough inspections were all signed off on last week, I believe.
Correct.
So just to clarify, I think the building commissioner approved the internal changes, which is separate from your approval of the use.
Right.
So,
Correct.
So that's all
No,
that's.
so I'm fine.
Okay. Great. Yeah, I'm fine as well. All right, then, is there a motion to approve and authorize administrative review and approval for the change in use from personal service establishment to business or professional office for 6 Liberty Way? Motion and a second. All those in favor, Bob?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Darren?
Aye.
Mike? Aye. I say aye.
Awesome.
Good luck.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
It was nice to meet you all. Thank you.
Probably another month.
Right.
Can't happen soon enough.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay.
Welcome to Westford.
Thank you.
We move on to general business topic B, which is potential changes to accessory dwelling units section of the zoning bylaw. We received a letter from the zoning board of appeals, which I don't know about you guys, I was pleasantly surprised to see this in the packet. I thought it was great. And basically they're asking us to review and offer our insightful comments, as well as potentially co-sponsor a zoning bylaw amendment change, right?
Yeah, that is correct, sir, and the chair did offer, if desirable, he'd be willing to attend a future meeting of yours if you want to have more detailed explanations or their perspective.
Great. That's excellent. So I just wanted to open it up for board discussion. Does anybody have any thoughts or comments on that?
Well, I can tell you, Dylan, start off that I've brought some of these before the zoning board of appeals, and I'm very happy to see these changes. It's going to make it a lot clearer for the applicants and a lot less work for staff and the ZBA, in my opinion. The only one that I question is number 8 on 3.3.1, to provide housing units for persons with disabilities. I don't know, traditionally this was basically, they outlined why they wanted these units, and it was to keep folks in town that may be able to, may have been priced out of the houses that they were in and whatnot. And I'm certainly all for providing houses for the persons with disabilities. I don't know that I don't want this to become something that, well, requiring disability, what's the ADA?
Yeah.
Right.
So I don't think it actually does call it out in the way it's written now, but that was just, my question is, do you know how this came about, Jeff, or?
So I think when we looked at, this section of the bylaw, aside from the minor tweaks lately for defining gross floor area, I think these were largely unchanged from way back in the day. And so we just took an effort based on looking at some other municipalities of fleshing out some of the other purposes that would be called out. And we have had a number of instances in the past where these accessory dwelling units were in fact for infirmed or partially disabled folks. And some of them even sought additional variance relief to have, say, wider doorways, better access. And so that's why we also have a provision if the building commissioner can make a certain determination about universal design principles. Well, I guess to step back, we're trying to solve 2 problems, first of all. Percentages are horrible when dealing with this sort of thing. So percentages can be very misleading. If someone has, say, a 6,000 square foot home, they could potentially convert 2,000 square feet of that into an accessory dwelling unit. And maybe that was the intent, that's fine. Some people might view that as, a 2,000 square foot accessory dwelling unit that's larger than some primary dwelling units. I'm not saying that's wrong, but maybe they didn't envision that. They envision it being truly an in-law apartment. And most of them, I will say, they start that way. They have a family member, and, it's very ideal for family situations to have a family member move in there with modest space. But, as years go on, people move on, people pass away, unfortunate things, they're left with this now vacant space. What are they supposed to do? So you can't require that it be, for family or by blood or marriage, but that is the most common use of it. And we also have found out that when it turns over, a lot of times, that is why people buy it, is because it satisfies their family need. And I know there may be this fear of, it's going to be a rental unit, Well, yeah, that is a possibility, but the trend seems to be, it's more so for family members, whether initially or even down the road when the property changes hands.
Yeah.
So the other problem that's been a real issue is, especially in this day and age, closing attorneys are looking at properties, and there's this limbo period where the bylaw says the special permit shall terminate upon change of ownership.
Yeah.
But you can't provide the necessary affidavit until you are the owner. So you have someone who wants to buy this because it has the in-law apartment, but the minute that the ownership changes, poof, the legal permission is gone, and now they have to go back to the board. It's a 3-month process, essentially, and they're hoping that the zoning board doesn't change their mind and grants another special permit. Well, that seems, I mean, how are they going to deny something that they once approved if there are no changes?
Yeah, that just seems unfair.
It seems, that seems unfair to current residents and future residents. So we prefer, and the zoning board agreed, to at least create a more administrative process, gives them a window of opportunity. We suggest 90 days, I think, where you're the new owner, you come in within 90 days, you give the updated affidavit that it will be occupied not fewer than 6 months of the year. But the owner will occupy either the primary or the accessory dwelling unit. If they do that within that window, no public hearing is needed.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, it's a different situation if someone has come in and done changes, modifications, or enlarged without benefit of permits. That is not what this is about. If someone comes in and the ADU is essentially unchanged from when it previously or initially got permitted, this gives an administrative option to continue that without this period of limbo where they legally don't know if they can continue to use it for that purpose. So that has been a real problem, I'll tell you, and it's created nightmares for folks to just keep doing what it's been used as. So that's one of the biggest things. And then we just tried to clarify a few things, what has come up from time to time. So we welcome your comments. We don't expect you to have them all tonight. But you can certainly continue to weigh in as a board or individuals and send us your comments.
Sure. I don't know, Darren, Kate, or Bob, did you have any comments?
Just a quick, my only comment, I guess, is to think about, and you probably have this already figured out, Jeff. So item 7, it talks about rental units. My only concern is, we had this discussion within the last year about people who are renting out parts of their home for
Airbnb,
VRBO, whatever it is. So I just want to make sure that this doesn't promote a bunch of people sort of setting up apartments for Airbnb, but I think that discussion we already had should satisfy that.
So short-term rentals is prohibited in Westford. So this doesn't change that.
So they could rent it, but it would be like annual rental type of situations. And I believe I read in here that they could only do that if they were living in the property for at least 6 months of the year.
Yeah, the owner has to reside there at least 6 months.
Owner must live there 6 or more months of the year. Which is unchanged from the current circumstances.
Right.
That was my only thing that came to mind, but otherwise, I think it's a good idea.
Bob? Kate?
This is Kate. On the standards, which is page 102 in the packet, number 3, appearance. I was just interested in the discussion that they had, that they wanted to add the stuff in red about including accessory structures such as barns, garages, or sheds. What prompted that in there? About the external appearance of the structure, which the ADU is to be located, shall not be significantly altered from the appearance of a single-family structure, including the accessory structures.
So this is more clarifying because already under the bylaw, it does, there is an allowance or provision for using existing detached structures for ADUs.
Yep.
There is a current requirement that it be in existence for a minimum of 10 years.
Yeah.
So this would remove that time period requirement. But it also, I think the intent was to say, hey, the appearance that we're talking about isn't just for the primary dwelling unit, it's also for what you're choosing to convert for the detached. So this actually clarifies and makes it clear, I think, that we're talking about both structures in the case where it's a detached accessory dwelling unit.
Right.
We care about that appearance too, not just the main home.
Okay, so not that it necessarily looks like a barn or a shed, but that it looks nice.
Yeah, I think they've got discretion, it's a special permit, we're talking about appearance, it needs to have the single-family residential overall feel, that character. So yeah, I just think it makes it clear that they have that discretion, as opposed to the way it reads now.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Bob, any comments?
I didn't have any comments on the language. I mean, there was a lot of changes, and I probably we'll have to have some good hearings and good discussion on those changes. The question I had was in the supporting table that looked at the history of some of the zoning board cases in this matter. There were several of these that caught my attention because there was a none shown under variance. And when I looked at the size, it just called into question how big were these homes. And I suspect there may be some discrepancies in that table. Specifically, I was looking at 112 Keys Road. That was a decision regarding an increase in size of 1,353 square feet. And if that did not bring up a variance trigger for greater than 15%, that meant the house was well over 9,000 square feet by my calculations. And that just seemed out of place. So I think we need to, between the staff and the zoning board, take a look at those to make sure they were not greater than 15%. The other one, 78 Main Street, was one that I flagged, 112 Keys Road, as well as 25 Carlisle Road. Those all seem to be, and the other one is 4 Autumn Leaf Lane. They just seem to be pretty substantial increases in size, and I don't understand how they didn't trigger the greater than 15%.
Yeah. So if I may, so Bob, we have two different percentages that we're dealing with. The 15% pertains to new construction. So if they're doing an addition to facilitate the accessory dwelling unit. So that's one criterion. The other is 33%. So the 33% says whatever, let's say your home is 1,000 square foot home, for simplicity here, you get 1/3 of that by right to be the accessory dwelling unit. So 1/3 of your dwelling can be converted into the accessory dwelling unit. If you don't do new construction as part of the ADU, the 15% doesn't kick in, it doesn't apply. You're governed only by the 33% of the home, 1/3 of the home. Does that make sense? So if you have a
That makes sense, and I think maybe maybe we need another column indicating whether this was new or existing construction.
Okay, and now the other tragedy here is someone could potentially come in, do a by right addition, construction addition to their home, not call it an ADU yet, and just do any of the many things that they could legally do to increase the size of their primary dwelling unit, and then the next day they could come in and say, well, we're converting
33% of it
33%
into an ADU.
And so for the folks that are coming in, this has happened. Well, we're trying to be upfront and do what's right. We're telling you what we want to do, and we're like, sorry, you now need a variance because you're doing like a 300 square foot addition.
Yeah.
To facilitate your ADU.
Yep.
That just seems
Yeah.
not right. And it's the modest-sized dwellings that are really being penalized.
Yep.
You start with a modest square footage, and you're kind of at a real disadvantage when you're talking about percentages. And that's why we think it's simpler to just have flat rates.
Yep.
If you want more, then you need additional relief to do more, a different question, so.
Yeah. Well,
I agree with that.
Yeah. Well, that sort of leads itself to the, sorry, go ahead, Kate.
And so to clarify, Jeff, then this would get rid of the 15% if you're adding onto your house, or the 33% if you're just converting part of your house, and then make it a blanket 900 or 1,000 square foot.
That's the current intention, yes.
And so that was really my only question, and it's not a negative comment, because I think that this change is smart, and we should do something like this. But I did have a question: how did we arrive at 900 square feet? And I guess even more importantly than the 900 square feet is the applicant can have 1,000 square feet if they satisfy some criteria regarding energy efficient, right? Isn't it energy efficiency or universal design standards? So,
And the and/or is a little dangerous there. So we're working with the building commissioner. This is going to go to town council. That's one of our questions. So
Yeah.
we've had a number of, I think, as I mentioned earlier, a number of applications where people, say were wheelchair bound. They needed more maneuvering room. They needed things a little bit wider. And so there's been a couple of instances, I believe, that the zoning board you're allowed right now, no matter how big or how small your house is, 800 square feet. So the 33% kicks in, that cap kicks in when you're above 800 square feet. Okay? So, but there were some folks that, due to the layout, the maneuvering, they needed, like, it was 850 or say 900, they needed variance relief. And the additional area, they convinced the zoning board that it was due to needing the added room for the maneuverability. And so the thought is, well,
900 just kind of covers it.
900 covers it. 900 is also a value that is called out in some of the state's recent guidance when they define accessory dwelling units. So the 900 was also intended to be consistent with what the state has defined for accessory dwelling units.
Got it.
So there's a variety of reasons, and Joe, you can.
I was just gonna say, and it just happened to hit right around what the average is for all these different accessory dwelling units, which was 904.
Yep. Got it.
So we're not trampling the spirit, we don't think, of what has already come this way.
So the 900 I wasn't as concerned about, or I'm not concerned about really any of this, I'm just kind of trying to understand. So the energy efficiency that would get somebody up to 1,000 square feet, are those standards that change over time? Does the mark on what is energy efficient keep going up over time as better standards are developed in that front? And is that going to be a sliding scale that changes over time? Or is there something that we would draw a line in the sand now and say, if you meet this criteria, you're entitled to the extra 100 square feet?
So that is one of the items that we're discussing, that and the universal design with the building commissioner. We need to have something that's clear, defined, and if it's subject to change, zoning might have to be updated to accommodate that. So we want to also take a look at, if standards change, do we have to update our zoning bylaw, or do we just?
Well, if you've been chatting about universal design standards, can you let me know what those are? I didn't have a chance to Google that.
We will.
What is that?
We'll put together. So it's a methodology of when you have a home. That can be geared for people in different stages of their life. You want to make sure that it could be consideration for width on stairs or hallways. It could be allowing such that if someone did need, say, chair lifts to go upstairs, that things are sized in a way such that it doesn't create a major issue to put that in after the fact.
Got it.
It can do things for counter heights and things, considerations and tubs, and making sure that access to the home is practical for those who may have some mobility issues.
Got it.
So it's taking those things. I didn't do it justice, but you get the gist.
I get the gist. That's helpful. Thanks. Those were the only questions I had. And I mean, I guess, a theoretical question is, could we be, let's say somebody did both energy efficiency and universal design standards, should we encourage that by adding another 100 square feet on it if they meet both of those criteria? I would be, the only thing I might offer back to the zoning board and to town staff would be like, I don't know if there would be, if it's worth it for us to encourage people to design and build in this way, to give an extra sort of carrot to say, hey, do both and you get another, 100 square feet.
Okay, yeah, we got some homework, but we'll get you answers on that.
Okay. Great. So what are the next steps here? Should I work with Joe to pen a letter back to the zoning board? Should we just invite the chair of the zoning board to an upcoming meeting? How do we want to proceed?
Well, it's whatever you prefer. It sounds like the board is overall amenable to this. You've got some clarification that you like on the table that was provided, maybe a little more pieces of info. We do have to explore, we already have to explore more for the universal design and the energy efficiency, so we got to pull that together. Maybe we can get some solid information from our building commissioner, we can share that with you and the zoning board. And then maybe, yeah, you can work with Joe to pen a quick reply back.
Sure.
We'll put it in their next packet, and then we can just, when we get the additional information, we'll share it with both boards. And if you seem to be in general agreement, then maybe we'll send it to council preliminarily, and then we can see if everyone's still on enough of the same page. Maybe both boards are willing to sponsor it.
Great. Joe, I'll trust you to keep me.
Kate,
Yes, Kate.
so it sounds as though what we have in the packet with the redlining and such is basically the form with tweaking that has to be done, that this is what they would like to present to town meeting.
Yep.
In the spring.
Yep, well, we can't say spring for sure, but, it's ready when it's ready. Big picture, this is what they're looking for. We understand there's gonna be some adjustments, and then town council hasn't seen it yet. So I know there'll be changes, but big picture, yes, this is what they're looking for.
Yeah, no, makes sense.
Yeah, again, I think what I'm hearing from all of us is that it's just great to get this kind of forward-looking from the zoning board as far as things that they're seeing all the time as appeals and looking to take corrective action against the bylaws themselves to make, common sense adjustments that just help the taxpayers and people in the town, applicants within the town, right? So ultimately, this is good stuff. Great. So Joe, I'll trust you to keep me honest and on schedule so that we can get a letter back that'll make it in the ZBA packet.
Sure.
I'm happy to work with you just via and through email on that.
Sounds good.
Great. All right. So then the final general business topic that we have this evening is a discussion regarding Chapter 358 of the Acts of 2020.
So, Mr. Chairs, we've warned you about before.
Yes.
Briefly, for those who may not recall, under Chapter 358 of the Acts of 2020, MBTA communities shall provide for at least one district of reasonable size in which multifamily housing is allowed by right, as of right. No special permits, as of right. And they shall be without age restriction, and they shall be suitable for children, families with children.
Yep.
So, and at this point, they are requiring a minimum district size. Now, the district, it could be an overlay district, but they're looking for a minimum of 50 developable acres. So 50 acres. It's not small. Westford is, whether you believe it or not, considered an MBTA community. We double-checked that with council, who agreed. And that's based under Mass General Law, Chapter 161A, Section 1. We fall under it through other served communities. So we obviously don't have much of that, but we do have a bus route. But we are considered an MBTA community, and we are bound by this mandate from the state to provide at least one district of such reasonable size. So they go on further to say that an MBTA community that does not comply with these shall not be eligible for funds from various grant sources, including Housing Choice Initiative, Local Capital Projects Fund, and MassWorks Infrastructure Program. They also say if there's any other grant programs that are discretionary up to them, they may factor that into their decision-making. So the short version is we're not asking the board to do anything tonight. We recently received guidance right before Christmas, so we're sharing that with you to keep you in the loop. Technically, you folks are not the ones that are really on the hook at this moment. It's really up to the executive authority in town, the select board. So we have a few recommended steps, and we just want to keep you involved because it will, at some point, take a zoning bylaw amendment. You're going to have to hold a public hearing on that. And given that you are the planning board, I think there's a good likelihood that the select board may be looking for some direct participation from this board, given your role in the town.
Yep.
So first, the planning staff, we're going to provide an overview of this multifamily requirement to the select board, along with the latest guidance for their consideration. We've got to get some direction from the select board on how they like to go about preparing a strategy, because we have to develop an action plan by the end of this calendar year. So we're going to end up having to say, let's not implement anything, it's just prepare an action plan. Like, we don't currently have such a district in place, here are the steps that we're going to do to try to take care of that, resolve it. And then, before town meeting and these boards can make an informed decision, we think it's only fair to do some research for these grants that we may not be eligible for if we don't comply. I think we owe it to everyone to figure out, well, what have we applied for from these grants? How much, and when was it? And what are we likely going to apply for in the future that we can see? So if we're going to ask various departments and say, hey, maybe it wasn't a big deal in the past, maybe it's going to be more of a big deal going forward. We just want to get that information out there to see what that might actually mean. The other thing we want to do is we want to work with our GIS, because we think for folks to start thinking about this, we need to have a graphical depiction of Westford and the surrounding communities and the MBTA services available in case we need to end the bus route, to see about what areas might make sense to think about putting, say, an overlay district that makes sense with where we have the infrastructure to support it and where they might take advantage of other MBTA services in other communities. Then it's not totally clear. We want to get some clarification about whether Westford is considered a bus service community or simply an adjacent community. So that's important, because if we were designated as a bus service community, we might need to have double of the required potential for additional housing units.
So 100 buildable, developable acres as opposed to 50, is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying the number of units.
Oh, sorry.
So, and none of this is absolutely clear right now.
Yep.
So they say they want a minimum of 50 developable acres, and they want the density to be a minimum of 15 units per acre.
Yep.
That is subject to restrictions from wetlands and Title V requirements, because we don't have municipal sewer.
Yep.
However, what I think that really means is there's a certain number of units that they would like the potential for development. And if you can't fit that due to these restrictions in that, let's call it an overlay district for now,
Yep.
then you need to make your overlay district larger. And so that's why I think early on, we need to get a handle on how many units do they think we're supposed to be,
Yep.
before we start thinking of where and how much and what changes. So, and this all takes town meeting approval.
Yeah.
So I just feel like we're obligated to at least put forth some reasonable options for consideration by this board, select board, and ultimately town meeting.
Yeah. So, what would you like this evening? Comments?
Well, you can, if you have any initial comments, that's totally fine, but we plan to go to the select board, do a little research, and bring both direction from select board and the research back to you folks on the select board. So we're just trying to keep you in the loop for now. But you probably will not be spared of the fun, because we're the planning board.
Yeah, I guess the question I have is, there's affordable housing requirements in a town right now. Would this be over and above that, or would affordable housing be possibly a subset of this, or,
So I think there are opportunities to include affordable housing as part of this, but the overarching goal here is to simply provide additional housing units in town. It isn't necessarily to provide affordable, but I think we can incorporate that if that's the will of the town. And Joe, you can correct me on anything. So there's a lot of possibilities, a lot of options, and I've even had several property owners reach out to me saying, if the town starts looking at this, we might want to have some of our properties brought into consideration. Because it's always better to have cooperating property owners as opposed to those that are not. But they really just have questions. It's so early, and the guidance just came out, that everyone mostly just has questions.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the first questions I had for Jeff was the question on, how many of these different grants and sort of state funding sources have we even, taken advantage of over the last, say, 10 to 15 years, and how many do we intend to over the next 5 to 10 years? It's, you know, look, at the risk of, I don't want to speak for the whole board, I'll speak for myself only. This feels very much like a forced urbanization push by the state. It doesn't feel really good looking at it. It feels very sort of strong-armish in its approach, like, you know, you will provide this or you will not have access to these funds, and it just seems like it's going to be challenging. Again, you mentioned no municipal sewerage in town. It's going to be, I think, a challenge to get anywhere close to 15 dwellings per acre within town. I mean, that's, you know,
15 units.
15 units, yeah, per acre.
Right.
It's just, that's an incredible level of density
take
we
a
don't
look
see
at
in
where, you know, Red Hat is, right?
Right.
How many units are in there?
Well, so we have 240 and 180, so that does not mean that we can't necessarily include some of those already developed in the district,
Gotcha.
but, you know, it's not an absolute right now,
Yeah.
but that's one of the things that obviously we would try to explore. If there's a way to legitimately include
Yeah,
that,
position,
we're gonna
existing, yeah.
obviously do that. That gives us, if we're on the hook for so many units,
Yeah.
and so we already have 240 plus 180
Yeah.
right there, you know, that might be a good starting point. So
Yep, yep.
why not get credit for what the town's already done, if we can?
But even
Well, that's
still,
exactly what I was
In the
thinking.
mill, right?
yeah. But back of the napkin math, we need 750, right?
Well, it depends.
15 acre, 15 units an acre by 50 acres.
Yeah, no, that math is solid, but there may be expectations for as much as more than double that, depending on how we're categorized.
Right.
Which would be a lot of units.
I mean, even 750 is a lot of units.
Yeah, it is.
So we can have a skyscraper variance now, or?
Well, it's
30
interesting.
floor
I was thinking
building.
about that, the height, and stuff like that,
Yep.
The only way you get that density is going up, so.
And that's a good point, Dylan. I mean, maybe the question should be asked, do we even want to proceed? You know, because it's going to be a lot of work for staff.
Yeah.
And
That's not,
potentially to us.
that's not the consideration.
Well, it is, because, I think it is.
Well, at the end of the day, town meeting's gonna have their voice heard, right?
Well, that's it. And so, to do all this work to get to town meeting, do we get a consensus of the town beforehand,
Right,
to see
right.
what the interest is in putting all this effort into it?
Yeah.
One thing I would mention, just in terms of the grant sources, I won't be able to do it justice just in a short, discussion here, but the area I'm just pulling up here is the City of Lowell's Hamilton Canal Innovation District, was an area I worked on.
Yeah.
The city obtained MassWorks funds. This was an area that had, over a year of planning after the city obtained a large amount of the land. 2 MassWorks rounds were utilized to build out the infrastructure. Over here is going to lead to over 1 million square feet of development in the city, essentially doubling the size of downtown, providing connection to downtown, over to the Gallagher Terminal, where the train station is, essentially kind of closing that gap for anybody who's going to live or work in there to be able to utilize the train station better and connect to downtown. So in order to build out this infrastructure over here, bridges over here, and then over on this side where there was no water, no sewer, MassWorks was utilized in order to make some of that happen. And MassWorks was then leveraged by the city to obtain federal funds through the EDA in order to build essentially this bridge here and contribute to the infrastructure costs as well. So there was a lot of time that was spent into planning this area, and then that just rolled into actually being able to build out the infrastructure. Now you have 110 Canal over here. I don't know if you're familiar with that. It's occupied by UMass Lowell, their innovation hub, where they create smart fabrics, technology, medical devices, small companies that are starting up out of there, growing and moving on out of that facility. And then over here is Appleton Mills. That was an over $60 million project that ended up being possible by being able to bring this infrastructure over here. So just something to think about, and I get that it's a lot of units, but just being able to tap into funds like MassWorks
Yeah.
can lead to a lot of significant development.
So that's a good point, Joe. So I mean, I guess what you're saying is it's an opportunity for us to think about making requests to use funds, maybe if we thought that there were areas of the town that could be improved through some state grants.
Especially if there's going to be demands on the town's infrastructure needs already.
Yeah.
Working with somebody who might be looking to do a development is always looked upon favorably by the state. Allows the town to be able to tap into funds, state funds, in order to help build up that infrastructure to accommodate the additional units.
Bob, Kate, I know you're not here in the room with us. Did either one of you want to weigh in on this, this discussion topic for Chapter 358?
I'll let Bob.
No, I think I agree with what I agree with what Darren just said. I mean, it's kind of forced, and what's, concern is, what comes next in terms of what's being forced upon us, and does it really fit within the community character? And so,
Yeah.
but no other comments.
Yeah.
And I agree with that, what they have in here for the requirements seems to be better suited for the communities inside of 128, not those of us around 495 or outside of 495. And I was thinking about that 15 units per acre, that's a higher density than our 40B requirement, which I think is 8 or 12. Our limit for 40Bs, which is 8 or 12 per acre, as I recall. So this is higher with no guarantee of 20% affordable units unless we can somehow get it in there.
Yep. Yeah, no age restrictions or anything, yeah.
Yeah, and I also, page 109 in the packet, which is page 4 of whatever this document is, at the top of it, it talks about, I see a conflict in some of the information in here, and maybe you can get clarification from town council. Because at the top, it's talking about reasonable size, that it's a relative rather than an absolute determination. Because of the diversity of communities, that something that's reasonable in one city or town might not be reasonable in another one. And what does that mean? That if we have the issues with septic or whatever, is that a valid reason to say we can't do 15 units per acre? And then you have that saying it's not objective, it's relative. And then you go down to item 5, determining reasonable size, and A is the minimum land area. And there it says, well, you have to have 50 acres. We don't care. Reasonable size has to be at least 50 acres. And that doesn't make sense either. If you're a community that is small, or you don't have a lot of houses, or something like Carlisle where you have 2-acre housing requirements, where you'll never get a lot of houses, and maybe you only need 200, but you have to have 50 acres of 15 units per acre. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just think, by definition, I think we have to be an adjacent community. I mean,
I would hope.
the bus line we have goes down 110 or maybe Route 40. How
110.
town is that served? It's not like Winchester where the bus goes everywhere in town. It's, it's very limited in what we have access to. So, I mean, to have us have one of the highest standards because we're in the bus route community, it's even higher than the commuter rail community, which doesn't make any sense to me.
I'm not suggesting that it does. I just before we embark on any real brainstorming, I just want to get clarification, confirmation that hopefully we're other served community category.
Right.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying. I mean, we do have the bus line.
Yes. Yes.
What I remember seeing, we were an adjacent community in that category.
We hope, yeah.
So, well, certainly a lot to think about. It sounds like the select board's the next stop on your train of fun. Or maybe it's a bus of fun.
I take that bus all the time.
You've got a car or two on that.
Yeah. Okay, so we will await to hear an update from you, and obviously the board will help out in any way we can.
Look forward to it.
Yeah. Great. Okay. So then, given, unless anybody else has anything else for that discussion, we can move on to a review of the draft minutes from December 6th of 2021.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve a motion and a second to approve the draft minutes from December 6th is on the floor. All those in favor, Bob?
You can discussion.
Normally we do.
Oh, yeah, right, I'm sorry.
No comment.
Yeah.
Well, it's just a,
I had a question.
hold on.
page-
There's a, hang on. There's a motion to approve. Let's vote on the motion to, wait, don't we normally vote on the motion to approve and then
You do,
make comments?
and then discuss.
Is there discussion on the
No.
motion?
Yeah, just,
Sorry. Motion and a second.
Yeah.
Any discussion?
Discussion.
My bad.
no worries.
Been a long day.
Holidays.
Yeah.
No comment from me.
Thank you. Mike?
No discussion.
Bob?
No comments.
Kate?
I just had a question on page 4, which is page 131 in our packet, line 174. I don't have my notes in front of me, but it's Chauncey Chu. I remember he asked about something.
Ask for clarification on section 218.
218-7 was, and I wasn't clear about this sentence.
What he asked? I don't remember what he asked.
Oh, yeah.
What was 218 dash?
Yeah, it was 218-7.
I don't have the subdivision rules in front of me, but, this is for Diane Lane. What was Chauncey asking about there?
I forget. Well, let me see if I can, maybe Joe can pull up the bylaws faster than I can.
Joe, you don't have it memorized?
Subdivision rules.
I'm afraid I don't have it memorized at this point. Sorry, Jeff. Demerits on my permanent record.
Wait a minute, 218-7.
I thought that was about waiver. Yeah, waiver of technical compliance. That's the section.
Oh, yeah, I think he was generally asking about waivers being discussed as part of an open,
Public hearing?
and I think he was corrected in saying this isn't a discussion about waivers, this is just talking about policy going forward.
Oh,
This wasn't a specific waiver discussion.
You're right, this was just a
Okay,
discussion on
So he asked for clarification, but he was informed that we are not talking about waivers, we're just talking about policy.
Correct.
So maybe the sentence could just be worded to reflect that. That we weren't talking about specific waivers, we were just talking about a policy with respect to specific waivers.
And regulation, it was informed that, yes, I would say informed that section 218-7 applies to waiver requests, period.
Which was not a subject
Yeah.
of discussion by the board at this
Correct.
meeting?
Yeah, we weren't discussing at the meeting, we were talking about policy, not waivers.
Right.
Some way to craft that.
But we were talking about policy with respect to a different section of the rules and regulations.
218-16.c.
Yeah, Kate, I think he was talking, he was kind of standing up to say, we shouldn't be having this discussion about waivers because it's not a public hearing.
Right,
It
exactly.
wasn't- We weren't actually having a discussion about waivers. Specific waiver,
Right.
yeah.
Okay.
maybe,
He said, so he appeared before the board stating we shouldn't be discussing waivers outside of a public hearing. And the board informed him that we were not talking about specific waivers, rather a policy regarding a specific
Right.
section of the rules and regs.
Right.
you got that gist?
There's my Joe.
I get the gist of what you're looking to say. We can draft something and send it to you for consideration before we finalize the minutes, if you'd like that.
That would be great.
Should be a short, easy one, that's good.
Okay, that was all I had. I just needed clarification on remembering what happened.
Great. So we have a motion and a second. I guess we'll friendly amend that to be pending some edits to
discussed here this
to that one.
Oh, I had one more.
Okay.
I did. Page 5, line 216. For consistency with the other votes, after it says the board voted 4 to 1 to 0, just add the words by roll call.
Yep.
And that was it.
Okay. So, Kate, if that's all, then we have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. We'll take the friendly amendment that Joe is going to put the change you suggested in front of you for approval via email, but given that, all those in favor say aye. Bob?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Darren?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
I say aye.
Great.
Okay, so that concludes approving the minutes. I don't see anything in the correspondence reports and updates section, so that means, is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So move.
Second.
Motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor? Bob?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Darren?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
And I say aye.
Feel better, Kate.
See you, yeah, feel better, Kate, Bob.
See you guys.
Take care.